Good morning, everyone. Morning. And happy birthday to Siddhartha, right, today? Today is Siddhartha's birthday, as Richard mentioned in the introduction this morning. This is the day that we celebrate the birthday of the historical Buddha. And although there may be a little bit of debate on the actual date that he was born, we have come to recognize it as April 8th, 566 BC, right? Long time ago. You know the story that there was a king and a queen, King Suddhodana and queen. Anybody know the queen's name? Maya, very good. So there's the king and queen, and they lived back in India. This is over 2,500 years ago. And they wanted a son, or they wanted a child. But of course, they wanted a son because the king wanted someone to rule in his stead. And they tried for many, many months. And one day, finally, Queen Maya was pregnant with child. And as was the custom in those times, the mother would usually go back to her home village if that's not where she was living now. And that's where she would deliver the child. So as they got closer to the time of birth, they began the long journey. They packed up everything and they began the long journey back to her home village. And about halfway through, they wanted to stop and rest, and they came across this beautiful garden. It was called Lumbini's garden. And at that time, she decided to take a little rest. And as the legend says, she rested between the sala trees, and just like that, poof, the baby was born. It's that easy, isn't it, mothers? Mothers? That easy. And it's interesting because as Sensei Keith today read the Three Treasures, Reverend Dennis has been asking me to read the Three Treasures in Japanese lately. It's called Sankyemon. And that's been a very wonderful thing for me to do, because in translating it to Japanese, you learn that the first sentence begins, Sensei Keith read, fortunate is to be born into human life. How many of you have been coming to temple for more than 20 years? Yeah. Do you remember how we used to start that? How did it used to start? Hard is it to be born into human life. Unless you're the baby Buddha, then it's just easy. But I remember, hard is it to be born into human life. I remember when I was younger, beginning the Three Treasures that way. And I think about that often when I think of the Buddha's birthday, because especially in today's world, I've noticed that people are having children a little bit later in life. They're not as young as they were. They're having them a little bit later. They're waiting to get financially established. And I've talked to many friends, and it is hard to be born into human life. Some of these people pay lots of money to, they need a little bit of help, and there's fertilization, you know what I'm trying to say. Those doctors, and they have, so hard is it to be born into human life. Now we are living it. And this is really, really what this story is about. And this is why we have this beautiful Hanamido here, because it's to represent the Lumbini's garden where Siddhartha was born. And when he was born, they named him Siddhartha, which means what? Do you know what Siddhartha means? If you read Reverend Dennis's message in the Sangha this month, you would know what it means. I'm not putting you out there. It means, there's a hand way back there. Go. Every wish fulfilled. Young child showed all you up in this whole, you guys. Oh, you wanted to give her a chance to answer. Is that what it was? Okay, that was very nice of you. One of the translations is every wish fulfilled. Imagine that for a moment, if you will. This child that was born to the king and queen who wanted a child so badly to rule the kingdom. This child was born and they named him every wish fulfilled. You talk about pressure, growing up. I mean, every wish fulfilled. And as you know, as Siddhartha grew up, eventually, there were a lot of things that happened, but as he grew up, at the age of 29, he ended up leaving the kingdom, leaving all the luxuries, leaving everything behind. And that's when he began his journey to find the truth. And after 6 long, hard years of study and ascetic living, very disciplined living, he finally accepted that bowl of rice porridge, sat beneath the Bodhi tree, and attained enlightenment. This is the abridged version of how this all went. But this is the meaning of today, Hana Matsuri, right? And Hana means flower, Matsuri means festival. So it is the festival of flowers. And this is what we celebrate. So, Siddhartha existed, we said over 2,500 years ago, long before this country was ever here. And I can't imagine Siddhartha ever dreaming about a country like this existing, a society like this, people like this. I can't imagine that he would even think of a time when people would live with so many different cultures and backgrounds and social economic levels. And I can't imagine that he would ever have dreamed of a time with all of this technology, right? 2,500 years ago. Just imagine 20 years ago. Just 20 years ago, okay? There aren't that many kids here, right? Because they're all they're prepping for the play, right? Okay, well, you guys, okay, this is the right audience then, okay? 20 years ago. You guys remember VHS tapes, right? That was all the rage. Who had beta? Yeah, me too. Don't choose stocks in the future, right? We don't know how to. But beta and VHS, remember the VHS tape? That was the technology of the time. We recorded all of our shows on VHS, if you knew how to program the VCR. But wasn't that, we couldn't even imagine of a technology replacing that, right? We'd go to video stores. Remember, you'd have to rewind the tape before you returned it to Blockbuster? Remember? See, we remember all that suffering. Oh, such suffering. Suffering in those times. But nowadays, it's all DVD now, right? So our kids have never even thought about having to rewind a DVD before returning it, right? Matter of fact, they don't even rent DVDs because they get them all streaming on Amazon, Netflix, Hulu, right? So even the DVD, which was replacing the old technology, is already gone. And that was only within the last 20 years. And too bad there's no kids here, but do you guys know how to turn on a TV? How do you turn on a TV? Press a button on a remote control. If you saw the TV that I grew up, you wouldn't even know what to do. First of all, it was giant, and it weighed like 1,000 pounds, right? I mean, right? If you were lucky, right? It was a big one. Even the small ones weighed a lot. And they had these things on them called knobs. They were knobs that you had to get up from the couch, walk over, and twist it. Okay? But even then, there weren't that many channels, so you didn't have that many things to choose from back then. I go on the channel guide today, I am overwhelmed. And truth be told, I don't even change the channel because I don't even know what to watch anymore. We have how many hundreds of choices now? Back then, we had UHF and VHF. Remember? What did we watch? 3, 10, 13, 40, 31. That's it. We didn't have no KCRA 58. We didn't have that. I forgot KVIE 6, didn't I? But that was it. I mean, that's really all we had to watch. Everything else is, fuzzy and it didn't come in clearly. So speaking of TVs now, you kids like to talk about these giant things, right? Now we have TVs that are so thin. I remember when I bought my TV, I bought the Sony XBR projection TV, and it was like 53 inch. That was. You know how much that thing cost? At Good Guys, I remember. It was at Good Guys. That thing cost $2,499. $2,000, and they tricked me to get the warranty too. So add another $300 on top of that, and it still works today. So that's like a relic. I should charge admission to come turn the TV on. But that is a crazy amount of money for a TV. Now you guys are getting TVs, right, for $499, and you're getting a huge TV. And now TVs are, what are they, 1080p? No, that's already old, huh? What are they now, 4K? Is that the newest thing, 4K? We get technology that's so new, the signals don't even broadcast that high. But we are so eager to get the newest thing and the best thing, even if it doesn't even work. We still want it. It's the best. I deserve it. I want it. These are things that Siddhartha could not even imagine in his time, right? And it's amazing that we still talk about Siddhartha and his teachings today, despite how much the world has changed. And we only went back 20 years. Imagine going back 200 or 2,000. Imagine how much things have changed beyond imagination to Siddhartha, what the world would be like. But no matter how much time passes, and no matter how much the world changes, the Shakyamuni Buddha's teachings still remain true and relevant, right? We must seek the truth of this world by removing the focus on our own ego. That is one of the essences. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories about seeing the truth, seeing the world as it truly is, and about my ego. So I'm going to tell you a couple quick stories. I remember one time I was driving here down I-5, and it was in the middle of the afternoon, and I saw, of course, it was a Toyota Camry, and it was beige. It was a tan Toyota Camry. And driving along, and it's going like, of course, 55 miles in the far right lane. And I'm following it. And, of course, there's a, little old lady in there. And there's a big stack of keys in the trunk, like a whole ring of keys. It's just stuck in the trunk. And I'm like, ah. And I'm watching this to see what will happen. I go, you know what? I bet you she's going to the church. I don't know why I said that. No stereotypes. But she did exit on the exit to the church, of course. So I was coming here anyway, so I decided to slow down and I followed her. And then she parked, of course, in the temple parking lot. This is years ago, okay? And I parked far away because I don't want to scare her like I'm stalking her, poor thing. So I waited till she turned off the engine. And then I went up to the front of the car and I went like, hello, hello. And she was looking at me. She had no idea who I was. Like, why are you following me? And so I went, wait 1 minute. And I ran to the back and I pulled her keys out and I went like this. And she goes, oh. I don't think she did that, but she went, oh, thank you. And I said, oh, no problem. It was my pleasure. And then I gave her a business card to my restaurant. That would have been such a wonderful story had I just left out that last part. But it shows you how strong the ego is, huh? The whole way I'm driving, I go, I'm going to do this nice thing for this lady. You're thinking it in your mind. And although it is still a nice gesture, not to take anything away from it, my ego to promote my business at the time, it was so overwhelmingly strong that even then I'm like, hope you enjoy your keys. And I give her, what is that going to make her do? Want to eat sushi? I mean, come on. So there's another story I have. I was parked in front of the Baskin-Robbins, on Florin and, right, anyway, the Baskin-Robbins. And I remember Ellie was old enough to go in by herself. I was just waiting there. So I gave her a $5 bill and I said, go ahead and go into the Baskin-Robbins. And I watched her, because the window's right there so you can see everything. And I watched her waiting in line and there was a little kid there, another little kid. And I could tell it was the mom next to me because her windows were rolled down. She was on her cell phone. She was looking at the kid, right? She wasn't looking at the kid. She's talking on her cell phone. Okay, so I watched the little kid, and I can see them going, and I watched the kid pull out, and you saw this. So what's happening? There's not enough money, right? And so you gonna get that? I'm looking at the mom. She's like, and then I'm watching the kid, and I can see it through the window, the lip syncing. You need $1 more, and this, what? So I saw this transaction, and I saw this transaction going through the window, and so what I did was I got out of the car, and I walked up to the lady, and I pulled out the balance. It was literally like, 28 cents or something. But as I'm doing it again, I'm going like this. Here you go, and I'm looking back at the mom for acknowledgement. She didn't look up the entire time. She never even got off her phone. She never did anything. And look at us. Even people here are like, they're all mad already that the mom didn't take care of the child. But again, these are two examples of what we talk about that are dana, right? Have you heard that term before? Dana means selfless giving. And the most important part of that phrase is the word selfless. You would think that the giving is the most important part, but the most important part is the selfless part. Because to truly give with no expectation and to remove your ego and to truly give, this is what the Dharma is about. This is the essence of what Siddhartha is teaching us about removing our ego. And you can see in our everyday life how difficult it is to do, right? We remember the good things, do good things. We remember that part and we try to do it. But that ego part of us is so strong and so instinctive. That is what separates us. That's the exercise in separating the action from the understanding. And so the last story I'm going to share with you is one about seeing the world as it truly is, seeing the world with eyes wide open. I was at a paint store buying paint, and this lady came in, and I immediately looked at her, and in a blink of an eye, I made a judgment of her. Okay, I went, "Oh, this is some crazy homeless person." Horrible, but I'm being honest with you. Okay, that's what I felt when she walked in, and she walked up to me, and I just, I had a tucked-in shirt, and I was wearing slacks that day, and she goes, "And can I get a job? Can I get a job? Can I get a job?" And I was like, "I don't work here, no." And she kept asking me, "No, can I get a job? Can I get a job?" And I was like, "Dude, what is your problem? I don't work here." So I said, no, right? And then she walked away. And as I watched her walk out the window, I saw her approaching a car with the hood up. And then I saw her talk to another guy, and then I saw them talk to another guy, and I saw them pull out jumper cables. Can I get a jump? Can I get a jump? In my ego, conclusion-mindedness, I already summed up who she was before she even walked into the store. I didn't even genuinely listen to the words that were coming out of her mouth as she was trying to communicate with me, right? I already came to this foregone conclusion of who she was and what she wanted and what she was all about. That is what ignorance is all about. And again, fundamental message from Siddhartha: open your eyes and see the world as it truly is, not as you think it is. So this is just an example to show us that Siddhartha's teachings, the Dharma, it's not something that's in a far-off land, or it's not something that's complicated to understand. It is a part of our everyday life. Everyday life. But we have to open our eyes to be able to receive it and understand it. It's always out there, and we just have to recognize it. So with that, please join me in closing Gassho. Although over 2,500 years have passed since the birth of the Shakyamuni Buddha, his teachings remain just as relevant and true today as they did all those years ago. I hope we can all continue to aspire to see the world as it truly is, and to live a life with less ego and more understanding of others. Namo Amida Butsu. 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 Namo Amida Butsu.